Hello, everybody. This is Haven, and I've been getting a lot of questions about Marvelous Designer, how to do different things, how different tools work, are certain things possible. So I'm bringing to you just a few of the techniques and tools that Marvelous Designer gives to us to help us create our clothing. Some of these are really simple, so don't be intimidated by this program. It's just really easy. This next button that we have up here, we went over the Create Polygon button in the first video. In this one here, you can see we have Create a Rectangle. And when I hover long enough, you can see that the text Create Rectangle actually shows up. In the first video, what I did was, when using this button, I left mouse clicked and drew out a rectangle. Unfortunately, when you do it this way, and you're a numbers freak, you don't know how big this is until you let go of it. And how I got these numbers to show up was simply in the blank area, I've right mouse clicked and turned on Show Line Length. So you can go ahead and do that on yours as well, show line length. And this is something that you need to do each time you come into Marvelous Designer. So here it is. Now I can see, I can see how long each of those line lengths are, and I can change those if I want to. I can get these precisely to the number that I want, but it does take a little bit of work to do. Instead of doing that starting from this odd set of numbers, let me go ahead and click on my Edit Pattern button, click in my pattern till it turns yellow, and delete it. Now when I use the Create Rectangle button, instead of left mouse clicking and dragging out a box, I'm going to right mouse click. I'm going to just left mouse click and not dragging out a box, but just clicking. And that brings up this dialog box where I can decide how long the height should be, how long it should be going from top to bottom, and the width side to side. So I'm going to leave the height at 500 for now, but I am going to change the width to, let's just say, 300 and click OK. And now I have it here. Clicking on my Edit Pattern button, of course, I can move this down closer to the avatar so I can get a better idea of what I'm creating to go with the shape. Now, this is nice. I mean, like I said, I've got all even numbers to work with, but this definitely isn't a pattern piece. It's just a piece of fabric. So we can use numbers to create something much nicer here. This button up here is called Add a Point or Split Line. When you click on it and you hover over one of your lines, you see that little purple circle? Well, wherever I left mouse click, I can place that purple circle. So I can come here and say, oh, I want my shirt shoulder piece to only be this wide. So I can left mouse click. Now the problem with that is on the matching side, I can't do the same thing too easily. It would take a lot of work to get this to be exactly the same length. So it's really not optimal way to do things, just to randomly place these points. Instead, let me click on my Edit Pattern, click on this dot, or it's selected already, and delete it. I'm going to use my Add Point button again, and this time I'm going to hover my line, and I'm going to make note of the numbers that are temporarily showing here. When I right mouse click, you'll see that those become pretty static for a moment. They're staying where they were when I right mouse clicked, and this split line window came up. Now, this split line window has three choices in it. The first one is handy, although I don't like the fact that you really can't tell which line length is 1 and which one is 2. There's no real routine to it, no real way of knowing which one of these lengths is going to be considered 1 and which will be considered 2. So I always like to make sure that I have a nice difference between these numbers. 76 and 223 are pretty different. So I can easily tell in this window which is length 1 and which is length 2. So length number 1, let's say I want this to be the shoulder. I'm going to change this one to maybe, I don't know, let's go with 50. No, way too high. But I have an idea for something else that I'm going to do in a minute. So I'm going to leave this at 50. And another thing that you can do is you could also do it by percentages. So you could do, 50% here. And now let me go ahead and click on my tab. And with this chosen to 50%, you see this isn't really changed, but this is. And this is really all that matters. And when I click OK, you'll see that this gets cut 50% right there. I'm going to go back into this, do Control Z to undo that. Edit point button, and just click again. So now the next choice that we have is split with length. And this one we're going to go over in a minute. Actually, you know what? I'll go over it now. Let me cancel this out. So let's say that on this side here, I can see that 500 is just way too long. And let's say that I want to have this maybe somewhere around here instead. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this, and I want this to be a nice number. You know what I mean? I don't want to just dump this in anywhere. I can go ahead and click split with length, and I can say, well, maybe I only want this to be 350. So I can click here, do 350, and you will see that I get my 350 segment, and then I get whatever is left over down here at the bottom. And if I click OK, you can see how that splits it up nice for me. Now the only thing about this is that, what if I wanted to do the matching thing on the other side? Well, I come over here and do the same thing and split with length. Only this time when I do 350, let's see if it does it this time. It came in reverse. Do you see that? My 350 is on the bottom and my 150 is on top. So let me do Control Z and undo that. Now when I hover and I do my split with length and I put in my 350, do you see that it's showing me my 150s here and my 350s down here? So I can choose this reverse direction, and now that gives me the same matching as the other side, and I can click OK. So now I've got these exactly where I want them. I'm also going to want to have an armhole here. So when I hover here, I can say, okay, I want it about here, but I want a nice even length, right? So I'll right click again, and for this top length, I want this at 175. I can do that here with 175, or I can do the split with length and do 175 here, and I can keep my direction as it is because this is 175, and click OK. As you can see, they're both 175 on this, which is kind of cool because it makes it easy. I can go here, and now I can do what's called a uniform split as well. I happen to know that this is exactly the same length, and basically I've cut it in half. So I can go to uniform split, and number of lines I can choose 2, and then click OK. And now this is split directly in half as well. Now another time that split comes in handy is when you want to get matching ends on either side of these for the shoulders. So right mouse click and split uniform, and now these are each 150. That's way too big for the shoulders. So I'm going to go in here and maybe choose, let's try 8 and see what happens. Now they're 37.50 for each one of them. If I do 7, each one is 42.86. when I do 6 of them, each of them are 50. And that's good for me, so I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And now I have all of these. Well, I don't need all of these points, so I'm going to use my Edit Pattern button, and I'm going to select this one and this one by holding down my Shift button and box selecting them, and then hit Delete. And now you can see I have this center one here left and 100 on each side with my shoulders. So this is how you can do things by numbers, and this is actually a pretty nice way of matching up pattern pieces for when you start getting more complex things. So explore the split line box. Remember, just hover anything till you get your purple dot, right mouse click, and then play with those. Another thing that you can do is take these notches here, these points. Let me do this. Let's say that this 50 was just way too long and it's not what I wanted. After all, I can come here and instead of redoing all of this, I can hit my right arrow and I can nudge that over a couple of times. And I can come on the other side and I can nudge that over the other direction a couple of times as well. And so I now have matching pieces or matching sides. I'm going to actually do one other thing though to give this even more symmetry, or to make sure that my symmetry stays. If I were to use my Create Edit button, you can see I can pull these both in to make little curves for the arms. But the problem with this is that it's really hard to get these exactly the same. So let me do Control Z to undo those. Instead, what I'm going to do is add a point, and I'm going to split this line down here in half and click OK. I'll use my Edit Pattern button to select this half, and I'm going to literally delete it. Now I can go into my Edit Curve, and I can bring my curve in like this for the arm. The problem with this is that don't just draw a curve and leave it there. Really think about what happens. Up here, because the angle is less than 90 degrees here at this corner, when we put the front to the back, we're actually going to get a point pointing down the arm. So this is not an optimal angle. What I like to do is click on this dot right there, and I can just nudge it over a little bit. So there I have something a little straighter, but I still have a curve. And you can see it's a nice angle here. And now I can click on this notch here and use my arrow, and I can click that over a couple of times as well. So I have something much nicer. Now I'm going to right click on this middle edge here and use Unfold. And this is just as if this were a piece of fabric on your desk or your table, and you cut it out along a folded edge. When you unfold it, you of course get that just like the paper snowflakes or paper hearts. Now I'm going to delete this right here, this point, because delete. I'm going to want to put a curve here, so I can just, whoops, wrong thing. Let me go ahead and click my Edit Curvature button, and then I'll pull that down for the neck opening. Now the last video I didn't show the Edit Curve Points button, so let me show you that now. When I pull this down, I just get like a U shape, and I can move that U here, here, but it remains a U shape basically. What if I wanted to have a more shaped neck opening? Clicking on the Edit Points, I can come in here and hover when I get this orange circle, hollow circle, and click, and I can pull it here. I can come on this side, click, and pull it here. And so now I can get more of a neck opening the way that I want it, like that. When you hover over these, you have to make sure that you hover it to pull it around. Otherwise, you just keep adding new points. So make sure you grab that dot very closely when you're going to re-edit these or edit them again. Otherwise, you can just end up adding dot, dot, dot. And these dots, by the way, don't matter when you're sewing edges. So if I were going to, let's say, edit this one here, and then sew arm pieces onto its sleeve pieces, these do not matter as far as sewing goes. You can just basically ignore them all. They're just there to make the shape of this curve. Okay, so that's good. And now, going into my edit pattern thing here, what if I wanted to say, I like this side of it, but I like this side of the curve better. You can see they're not exactly the same. Well, it may seem like a lot of trouble, but I really do like this side better. So I'm going to come up here to my button and click on it and split this in half. I've got my half one done still down here. So I'm going to just simply delete this again and then come on this one and unfold again. And so there, now I have my neckline nice on both sides. Now, something that you might not want to do is do this neckline before you've copied the piece over, because this is going to be the neckline on the back of the shirt as well. But for me, that's okay today. I'm going to click this and do Control C copy, Control V paste, Shift, and pull to the side. I'm going to right click and flip horizontally, and we went over that part in the last video why I do that. Now I can sew these together, but first let's look at this neckline. Maybe I did this too soon, like brought it a copy over, or created it. You know, I shouldn't have created it just yet. And I thought, well, I don't want my neckline like this. Well, you can come back into the Edit Curve button, and you can readjust this any way that you want. The problem with this is that all of those Edit Curve points are still here, and they're all still affecting however you pull this around. So let me do Control Z to undo that. What I'm going to do is box select this, and I'm going to delete that point, and now it's straight. So now when I click on my Edit Curvature button, you see edit points, I don't see any here. So I'm going to take this and click it, and now I'm starting from scratch. So I can just simply delete that one point to get rid of those edit curvature points. Curve this down a little bit. I can use my curvature points like that. Now, when I do this, what if I had the same issue I had before? What if I like half of it better than the other half? Maybe it's not what I want. Well, I can do the same thing. Edit, create a point, click and put it in half. I can edit pattern and select this half here and delete it, and then right click and unfold. So now I have my front and my back both perfect. They still match each other, and it's all really good to go. Now, remember I had cut this here down a little bit because I just felt this shirt piece was too long? Well, I can come into my edit pattern, select the bottom half, and delete those as well. And now I've got my shorter shirt piece. So that's really good. The other thing that I wanted to show you was how to do a bit of a ruffle. And it is no different really than just adding two straight edges together. So let me go ahead and, do you see that these are actually different sizes? I'm not quite sure how that happened, but I believe it has to do with the fact that I curved this and cut it in half. So I got a little bit of a difference here on the numbers. I could make these even again. So let's go ahead to this button here. Click on this and change the length to 300 and click OK. And now when I come in here, you see I have this little bit extra. Edit pattern, click on this and delete it. Come over to this one, and even though it's only 56.56, let's do it anyways. Click here. Oops, wrong button. Click here and split line. And where's my split line length? Okay, so split, and we'll do, it doesn't really matter which side we do it on, and click OK. And here I have my little bitty extra. Click on that dot and delete it. So now I've got both of these are perfect. So I don't like to do too tight of a ruffle in Marvelous Designer, and that's because of the way that the mesh is. And I'll go over that when we do ruffles a little more in depth. But for now, clicking on the pattern button here, let me just go ahead and left mouse click, and I'm going to leave this at 500 tall, but I'm going to change the width to 300 for both sides. So 300 and click OK. And if I were to use this now, I wouldn't get any kind of a ruffle because these are exactly the same length. So this really isn't the right number. It is if I want to match these up perfectly, but like I said, I want ruffle. So let's go ahead and delete this box. Click on Create Rectangle again. And this time, since this is 300, let's double this. And then click OK. So Edit Pattern button to move this in place. And yeah, that's a lot bigger. It's only double. Most of the ruffles that you do in real life are 3 times as big on one than the other, 3 to 1. But like I said, I'll go into these numbers more in a ruffles video. Shift copy, so Control C, for copy, Control V for paste, and I can shift and pull that to the side, right mouse click and flip horizontally. Now, something I should tell you about flip horizontally, it depends on what version of Marvelous Designer you have. You can achieve what I'm doing this way in a variety of ways, but this way works on all versions, so that's why I'm doing it in this window. I'm going to go to the sewing button and sew the outsides together and the insides together, and I'll sew the top front to the top, or to the front bottom, and the back top to the back bottom. And then I think we're all set to go with this. So let's go and click on our sync button. We will click on these 2 pieces and flip them. Click on them a second time to get our gizmo. And my gizmo is not world coordinates, so environment, gizmo, world. And I'm going to pull these back. Now the things that I'm going through pretty quickly in this video is because we actually covered it in the other one. So I'm just moving these pieces in place. And I'm also going to move them up because again we want them to get close together and start, the seams start to close before they simulate. And you can see here that I didn't get my shoulders done. So let me go back to my sewing button and sew my shoulders together real quick. Oh, I had to sneeze, excuse me. I hope I got the mic off in time. And now I'll click on the simulate button. And there we go. So we have a cute little dress with a cute little ruffle. And I didn't get the sides sewn together. No problem, I can sew those. Oh, I don't know what I'm thinking. Alright, so there we go. The sides are sewn together. Let me resimulate. There. And now we have a cute little dress. Little ruffled bottom on it. I don't know, I think maybe these edges here. I think these shirts are maybe just a little bit short. So let me just nudge them down a tiny bit. And you can see them moving down in that window as we go through this. And I don't know, but I think that's pretty cool for a quick little dress with a ruffle skirt attachment on the bottom. Alright, so that's how to use your split line and numbers and stuff. And so I'll come back with more tips really, really soon. Keep an eye out for it.